about one more round of applause for this amazing place? Where is BJ? Is he seated here eating somewhere? BJ? Right there, great. Thank you so much. This is amazing. You know, the best part of these prayer breakfasts, this is the 71st one. My wife and I are very involved with the President's Prayer Breakfast each year. It also started the same spring with Ike Eisenhower as the first president of the first National Prayer Breakfast. The best thing about these is Jesus. Jesus is the best thing about these prayer breakfasts, including this prayer breakfast. And this morning is a perfect opportunity, if you have not received Jesus yet, to ask him into your heart, into your life. Let him be your Savior, your Lord. And if you haven't already, then you can live out the rest of your life in thanksgiving and response to what Jesus has done for you. These last 40 years, when I first met Bobby, I've been a front row seat to the veritable tsunami of love and good deeds that the Lord has worked through the Muzikowski family. I'm just going to mention a couple of things. The Harlem Little League is something they founded in New York City. The Cabrini Green Little League is something they founded in Chicago. Then moved to the West Side Little League. And Tina and Bob were noticing these kids, even though they were doing their best through sports, when they got out of prison, they couldn't read and write. And so they bought a farm in southern Illinois. And I remember Governor Edgar sent state police over there after the Ku Klux Klan burned a cross in the front yard of this farm. And these kids would finally learn to read and write when they got out of prison. And then Bobby and Tina said, this isn't enough, we have to go deeper. And that's how Chicago Hope Academy was born, out of a lot of sacrifice, purchasing a beautiful school with a chapel in it from the Catholic Archdiocese. And in 2004, that dream started. In closing, before I bring them up here, you guys may as well start walking up. I just want to say that when Bobby was 6 years old, I think it was, his dad had the foresight to bring him to Washington, D.C., put him on his shoulder to hear the I Have a Dream speech from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Now, Bobby doesn't remember the speech so much, but he remembers his family as part of the 5% of white people gathered there on the mall, how friendly and how kind the African Americans were to him and to his family as they came to support Dr. King. Without any further ado, I guess that was some ado, right, Ike? I'd like to introduce my dear friends, Bobby and Ike Muzikowski.
Pretty cool group here. Hey, how you doing? Hello.
You might think this is just happening because of the TV camera.
This is Tom.
Hey, guys.
It's not.
And they're with WGN. They're doing a little story about hope.
What are you guys learning about today?
We are actually doing polar coordinates. So
Anytime a visitor enters a classroom at Hope Academy, the whole class, just 15 students or so, jumps to its feet. And the student nearest the door tells you what they're studying.
right now we're learning about Hamlet. We're just trying to come up and keep working hard, do everything we got to do.
They should put that on a poster around here. Well, in a way, they have. Religious slogans cover the walls, a choice that cost Hope millions in charter school funding. Also on the walls, the pennants of top-tier schools, not the ones Hope students hope to go to, the ones its graduates actually attend.
I think we're too much talk and not enough walk in Western Christianity today. I mean, our saying here is preach the gospel at all times, if necessary, use words.
Lockers aren't locked because you're not supposed to steal. There's an entrepreneurship program here that has Chicago's business elite lined up to help.
Is it because it's hope?
It's beautiful but scary at the same time because you obviously don't want to mismanage that goodwill that they've given you.
Hey,
All of it screaming out that something special is going on here.
how you doing? What's going on? You all right?
And a lot of that has to do with this guy.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
13 years ago, Bob Muzikowski sold his business and bought a school. Then he hit up everyone he knew
What's up? So you're
to
going
help pay the bills. And in the case of Bob, everyone covers a lot of ground.
Is there a friendship you haven't pulled on since you started the school?
No. I don't think so.
It includes one of his classmates at Columbia. Before President Obama made his 2012 victory speech at McCormick Place, he was here, shooting hoops at Hope.
We got a call from Secret Service that the president wanted to play basketball in our gym for good luck, which he did. So he was here for a couple hours. One of the things he asked me, he goes, Bob, what's your secret sauce to having a great inner city high school? And I said, Barry, if you want to fix an inner city school, put your own kids in it.
That Bob has done. He and his family live just blocks from the school, near some of the abandoned houses Hope is rehabbing and reselling.
When something's bad, we're supposed to go to it instead of run away from it, right? Which is what happened this fall, how I met you.
That's true. That's how we met when Hope's football season was interrupted by gunfire, a shooting in nearby traffic September 29th, right in the middle of a game with Providence Catholic. The next two teams canceled their games by forfeit. It was kind of a dark time.
There's a shooting down the street, and we're in a league with all Christ-following schools, and you choose not to come.
We have young people in the community. If all they see is violence, that's what they're gonna know. Chicago Hope is a special place because we show patience, we show love.
We're gonna help you dig through what you've been through, and we're gonna help you learn where hope is. I mean, that's why we're named Hope, you know? Like, it's a name for a reason.
So once you reach a certain age, and I'm well past this age, walking the halls of a high school brings back all sorts of memories. But for Bob, who walks these halls all the time, it's not really about the memories anymore. He's always thinking about what's next. And what's next includes this new state-of-the-art track. WGN was there for the dedication. Bob hopes this rough-looking stretch of North Lawndale will one day host the Special Olympics.
The new God is what's best for my kid, right? I think the magnets and all the stuff where the best for my kid, the kids who don't have access like that get lost, right? And that's the Vice Lords, the Gangster Disciples, and the Latin Kings.
Creationism explains the origins of our universe.
The alternatives to places like Hope too often become alcohol, drugs, and violent crime, as Bob will tell you.
I got in a bar fight and ended up in jail. It's actually the opening scene of the Keanu Reeves movie, Hardball.
I don't know.
Yes, that's Keanu Reeves as an alcoholic Chicago Little League coach in Cabrini Green, a character based on Bob.
He gets beat up, and actually, I won that fight. And I got locked up for assault.
How times have changed. Watch what happens here. As we're talking in the hallway, a student walks right up to the school's founder to pitch an idea of her own.
Right now, we're very short.
Oh, I know.
They're short on cash for a school trip.
Bob's told me about it, yeah?
Yeah, and we're really short of our goal.
Every year, instead of having a prom, Hope's entire senior class goes to Mexico to build houses for the poor.
We're excited because we go out there for a few days. We have a wonderful trip, really encounter Christ, and we just build these houses for other people and just do what the work that Christ has called us to do.
Those are the neighbors I'm supposed to love as myself, right? And so Hope is just an outgrowth of that. Now there's a whole bunch of us, right, drinking the Kool-Aid. We're like a 12-step school for Jesus here, right?
So, I am a sinner, saved by grace, right? Our works are like filthy rags, but we're created in Christ Jesus to do good works, right? Not sit out the war. So I love being down here. I would like to see more of a relationship between Bloomington and Chicago. I think that's what's supposed to come out of this, you know? So I know you read a lot of bad news, and it is pretty bad, but there's a lot of violence and strength and hope, and almost all the great work being done in Chicago is faith-based, usually followers of Christ, because otherwise you'd quit when you lose a kid who's close to you that gets shot, which I've had happen. And, so you want to stay in the fight, right? So I know you were singing songs about Israel. I got to go to Israel last year before the war. And I went with a big group, which I don't necessarily recommend, right? So, and my friend Vinny, he brought his family and his mother-in-law, who was about 90, but she wasn't fit like you at. She was 90 and a curmudgeon. You know what a curmudgeon is? Just we had T-shirts with whining with an X through it. I was going to give her one. But on the last day of the trip, she started to feel really sick, and she passed away in Israel. And these are my friends from Chicago, right? Big Italian family. And so now you got to work out the details. So they said to Vinny, they tell him, hey, look, if you want to have her buried here, there's a beautiful little cemetery at $700. If you want to ship her home, it's $7,000. So he's thinking for a second, and he says, I'm going to ship her home. And the guy says, why would you do that? $700 to bury here, $7,000 to ship your mother-in-law home. And he said, well, 2,000 years ago, somebody rose from the dead here, and I can't take a chance on that. There you go. Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a great philosopher, Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a game plan until they get punched in the face. So I'm just going to talk briefly and introduce the main speaker. I've kind of been trying to pass hope on. Brian Sarr, chairman of the board, said here, look, the fact that Hope is coming on 20 years old, most businesses don't make it that far, right? We're an independent, Christ-following school for poor kids when we don't get any government money. We did get the tax credit thing, which just got pulled, right? Which is crazy, right? So you could have anything like we don't get government money because we have scripture on the wall, we have chapel. Teachers could stop at or beginning. Some of you students, some of your teachers pray right before the classroom all the time. And for some reason, like you're not allowed to do that. How's that going? How's that working for us in Chicago? 4,000 shot 2 years ago, 850 dead. In Chicago, this is our city, 2 hours away. So Hope, we moved to Chicago as newlyweds in '88, and by mistake moved the block from Cabrini Green Housing Project. And I started to have a catch with some boys, bought some baseball gloves, bats. We were goofing around in the corner. I had no kids yet. My wife was a trader. I was in the markets. So after you have kids, all of you that have kids, like, did you wonder, what did you do before that? I mean, you must have been watching Seinfeld or something. I mean, or wasted a lot of time. So I made 40 posters, and I said, tape these to the telephone poles, Little League tryouts Saturday at 10. Maybe we get 6, 7 more boys, we could have a team. So the flyers go out that Saturday morning, 300 kids show up. So we become the biggest black Little League in America, and I wrote a book, and they made that bad movie. But I know when I walked in here, all the ladies was thinking I was Keanu Reeves, right? I think more of a Bruce Willis type, right? Anyway, that's another thing. I'm not a fan of Hollywood. We had to sue them. They had it R-rated. We made them change it to PG-13. So people say, you know, you must have had this vision for the inner city. I moved to the wrong neighborhood by mistake, right? And then we listen to God, right? Love your neighbors yourself, right? Our neighbors happen to be mostly African-American and poor because of the neighborhood that we moved to. And then they knocked Cabrini down. It was interesting. Mayor Daley knocked down all the projects that his father built. So almost all the housing projects in Chicago are gone now. And so we moved the program to the west side. And this had nothing to do with baseball. At our max, we had 64 teams, so that's 900 kids, and Paul O'Connor, some of our friends adopted the kids. A lot more went on than just baseball. I mean, that's how you meet the kids, because you wouldn't otherwise meet them. But if you're the coach, then you have some say in their life. So it's a wonderful thing. And I'll go, if I bump into a coach, a former coach in the league downtown Chicago, he could be a card-carrying atheist, but it's a different kind of hug than if we just played golf together, you know. So I want to encourage everybody, whatever is on your heart, whether it's the handicapped, the elderly, the other side of the tracks here, just double down on it, right? Double down on that. I mean, we're not going to get in trouble when we go before the Lord for pouring too much of our life and heart into His work, right? And I'm a capitalist to the core. If you have the gift of giving, it helps to have the gift of getting, right? So, you know, we want that, but you're supposed, you know, it says, do not, in Matthew, it says, do not store up your treasures on earth where moth and rust corrupt and thieves break in and steal. Store up your treasures in heaven, for where your treasures are, there will your heart be also. And it says, do not. It doesn't feel, if you feel called to. You didn't feel called to buy that $5 million house in Naples? Oops, now I got the somebody in the room. Sorry. You should think about that, you know. I surrender a little bit. I surrender a little bit for you, the rest for me. I surrender a little bit. That's not the way the song goes. So anyway, I'm going to talk for a second about our next speaker, who I saw first. So Ike is named Ike from Isaiah 58. Is this not the fast I've chosen, to loosen the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free? And later it says, then your light will shine in the darkness, and your noon will be like the day. That was the Jersey version of NIV. So Ike is a graduate of Chicago Hope. He played in the Little League. He and his brother were like the Jackie Robinsons of our Little League. You didn't flip it. And my sons were all stayed in track, right? And so they always said, well, how did your sons get so fast? I'm like, they grew up in the neighborhood. Like, you got to get fast. So in the fall seasons at Hope, he was all-state in cross country, conference player of the year in soccer, and kicked and punted for the football team. Right? So just in the fall. When you're in a small school, you got to do everything. But he really just poured it out for the school. And then he went on to Columbia University, and then got his master's at Harvard. He said, I don't want to be the principal just because I'm your son. So he got a master's in Harvard in education. And the too smart for God people in the Ivy League tried to beat Jesus out of him, and they just couldn't do it. So I'm encouraged by him. And here's one recent story. In Chicago now, there are Venezuelan little women with their babies. I saw a lady breastfeeding their baby. It was 25 degrees right in the street. They're everywhere in Chicago. And I'm not going to make a judgment of whether they should be here or not, but they're here, right? So we've hired a couple people, and Ike's roommate in his condo near the field just married my daughter. So he lost his roommate. Gang-banging kid, came into Hope as a freshman, came to Christ, his mom and his sister, and he baptized, went on to play football, Carthage, he's an engineer. And he comes to ask, can he marry my daughter, Scout, who is Notre Dame University's rugby captain, women's rugby captain. And I'm like, Rick, I'm not worried about Scout, man. I'm worried about you. Don't get on her bad side. But Ike, when Ricky leaves, he encounters a Venezuelan couple and their two baby kids, and those are his new roommates. So he took in a Venezuelan family and the two kids that he didn't really know much, right? So you crazy for Jesus, boy. So anyway, that's my son, Isaiah, and he's going to speak to you now.
Thank you. Is this mic on? Nice. I hear myself. Cool. Let's get going. So my name is Ike. Everyone calls me Ike, but my government name is Isaiah. And Isaiah 58 is the chapter I was named after, so I've always kind of had this identity around the messaging in that story, in that chapter. When I think about coming down to Bloomington, it brings back memories of going to Danville, Illinois with the baseball team, where I got my last whooping when I was 13 years old for something I didn't do by a man who wasn't even my father. So that's Chris Campbell on the far side. So my dad coached Chris when he was in high school. He coached me, gave me my last whooping. Then I coached his son, Neil, who's in the middle. And he graduated from Hope in 2020, and now he's at Indiana Wesleyan University. He's going to do another graduate school year. He gets next year with COVID. But when we're thinking so many generations, fathers, sons involved with the Emmanuel Bible Foundation, I think it's pretty cool that we have that same thing going on at Hope, but a lot younger. Hope's only 19 years old, but we're getting there. Don't worry. I think lessons are important to learn. When you get a whooping for playing ding-dong ditch in the hotel rooms, and they tried to kick your whole team out of the hotel, and they didn't say a white kid did. I was the only white kid on the team, so I couldn't admit to doing it and taking the blame. But lessons are good. Spare the rod, spoil the child. We can't discipline the students at Hope in the same way. It's just a different time. I don't believe in the corporal punishment in that sense. But kids need to learn lessons because kids struggle to listen. right? You can, at Hope, working at a Christian school is interesting. You can tell kids, hey, there's this invisible God in the sky who created the universe, and the majority will believe you. But if you tell them that the paint is wet, they can't resist touching it. And so I have a lot of fun working with kids because you get to teach them lessons. You're part of their growth. Whoops. Here we go. So my dad said, don't do a PowerPoint slide. Got to listen to your parents. He gets a 5-minute intro video, right? That helps. I need the PowerPoint slide support. So that's me in the middle. I have 7 brothers and sisters, or 6 brothers and sisters biologically, 1 adopted brother. Tyrone wears number 15. That's my best friend. He's my adopted brother. So what I love about Hope, and when I think about investing in communities, investing in spaces, my parents decided we're going to put our own kids in the school. It's very interesting to think about helping people from afar, right? A healthy work-life balance, a healthy service-life balance. You don't want to get emotionally invested. You don't want to get hurt. So that when your children are the most precious thing you have, and you're putting them in the school for these kids, for those kids, it's a school full of inner city kids. What does inner city mean? I'm an inner city kid. Right? A lot of us down in Bloomington, stereotypes of what's going on. We have stereotypes of you guys too. A lot of pickup trucks out in that parking lot, more than I expected to see. But inner city kids, hey, no, an inner city kid is a kid who grew up in a dangerous neighborhood, right? Still an inner city kid. No, an inner city kid means you're not white. All right, I lose there. Inner city is whatever you want it to mean, right? So we're a school full of inner city kids, and I was one of them. I love that my parents put us in the school. Since then, I went to Hope, went to Columbia, went to Harvard, and came back, and now I'm the principal school. This is my 5th year as the principal. And so thanks, man. It's ironic getting invited to a Lenten breakfast when you're supposed to be fasting. I didn't really know what's going on. But the beauty about working as a principal of school is that you get to influence the minds, the mentalities, and the lives of the students. They're very impressionable at that age. And so it's very important to me to make sure that they feel loved and they feel connected. Move on. So the purpose of today is to explain a little bit about Hope, dispel some of the stereotypes we have about Chicago, and also inspire you to come and visit. Right? When we think about true fasting, we'll get into Isaiah 58 a bit more deeply, but what does true fasting look like? It's not about just cutting out the carbs. Oh, I'm not on Facebook for a month, right? That's cute fasting. Fasting, when are you going to give to the point of inconvenience? To be compassionate to the point of inconvenience. To Matthew 25, love somebody. Right? So Hope is a place of belonging. I think one of the greatest feelings in the world is the feeling that you belong. There's a lot of tough spots in Chicago where kids don't feel like they're connected, loved, supported, cared for, seen. And so I stand outside of Hope every day. You can ask these kids that are at these tables. We got about 8 students here. I'm outside every single day greeting the kids because they deserve it. They deserve to have recognition, their name spoken. So I receive them well every day into the school. And so while we have 300 kids, we also have like this YMCA-like building. We have 10,000 athletes that come through our West Campus, our athletic center. So while we invest in 300 students to become the future leaders of Chicago, there's also 10,000 kids that are having safe programming because of where we are. If you look on the far right picture, all of our students are required to serve with Special Olympics. Special Olympics Chicago's permanent home is in our gym. And so lots of kids can say, oh, my life isn't that easy. My family situation is this. I don't have the most resources. Right? Someone in the suburbs has more than me. When you have to help out a kid at Special Olympics, it really activates your compassion. You realize I have so much. There's so much I can do. There's so much I can give. So we require all of our students to serve with Special Olympics, which is pretty beautiful. So this is what 30 years of investment looks like when you think about my parents supporting the neighborhood and being involved. We have a football field up top, a basketball gym with 4 NBA-sized courts inside, a track, and then a rugby field. And we're looking to build a new school over there That's what 30 years of investment looks like, believing in a place. Right? When it's so easy to not believe in Chicago. But if you look at those red stop signs just to the left, right, we're not in the nicest neighborhood. Each of those stop signs, these are what the corners look like. I went and took a picture of each of those corners for you guys to see. So when you think about Chicago, what do you think? Violence, drugs, gangs, poverty. If you think about all those things, you're not wrong. Right? That is very characteristic of the West Side. But the West Side of Chicago is so much more than just those things. Let's see here. So when you think about abandoning Chicago, Chicago's become easy to abandon physically and then also with the faith. The schools are empty, the churches are empty, and so we're trying to figure out how can we get people to believe in Chicago once again so it doesn't turn into Detroit. Because the West Side is starting to look like Detroit in more ways than one. And so if you're growing up in a tough neighborhood, it's not likely that you're going to go to a high-quality school. Right? If there's 30% unemployment rate, another 25% of the people are not working, 85%, 90% of people didn't go to college. It's not a formula for success. The cycle is going to persist. So these are the local public schools that our kids would go to if they weren't going to Hope. Or, right, Jada, where are you? I think Orr would be your public high school. That's Jayla. What would yours be? Manly, Marshall, right? So the enrollment from 2015 to 2023 has dropped precipitously because people don't want to be there. Families don't want to be there. Literally running from these schools. When you think about the daily attendance, 65% of kids go to the school on a day-to-day basis. Kids are going to get sick. You should have a healthy absentee every couple of days. And then you look at the kids who are going to finish 1 year of college, and that's kids who graduate from those schools. Not the kids who drop out in between. They're not even calculated in there. So if you're going to school where only 15% of the kids are going to finish a year of college, that environment is not facilitating a future-mindedness that is going to be successful. Right? It is not. So when you're surprised that this cycle persists in Chicago, if you look at the education system, don't be surprised. It completely makes sense. So one thing that Hope provides is scholarships for kids. We don't think kids should be restricted to their zip code. Should private schools be only for rich kids? No. Should they be, as my dad says, should they be racially segregated? Should they be only for white and Asian kids? No. But they mostly are. And that's just a reality. It's not to hurt someone's feelings, not to facilitate guilt. That's the reality. If you're low income and you're coming from a Black or Latino neighborhood in Chicago, I'll keep it for the sample size I know, you don't have access to private schools that are affordable. You have to pay the $20,000 each year. And so there was this scholarship program, not sure everyone's from Illinois, Investing Kids Tax Credit Scholarship, that allowed kids, if they didn't have a lot of resources, to go to private schools, right, on that scholarship. And so that was taken away. We went and protested. Tracy's here. Tracy used to lead the protest. Tracy, where are you? Tracy Melker back there. She'll be by the table afterwards. If you have a chance to talk with her, she's an incredible inspiration of someone who is not from the city of Chicago, who did not grow up in that environment, and is investing in these students and sharing their stories and believing them more than anyone else I know who is not living in that neighborhood. So she's a big inspiration to me. But we bring kids down there, and there's only 130 students in our school are getting the scholarship, but that's half our school. Right? We're 1% of all the scholarships that were eliminated from Illinois. So when you think about that starfish story, little girl walking on the beach, grabbing the starfish that are drying out on the sand, she's throwing them back into the water. Right? The old man comes by and he says, "Why are you throwing them back in? You're not going to make a difference. There are thousands of starfish out here." She grabs up one more, chucks it. It mattered to that one. Right? So each student's story matters. Each student's opportunity matters. And that's our mentality for our 130 kids. So we're going to find a way to raise scholarships anyways. That's our commitment. But that was what was taken. And so we're going to do a little exercise just to entertain yourselves. If you are turning awkwardly, I'm a teacher, educator. You can turn your chair around. Feel it's okay. Do it with the kids all the time. So when we think about kids coming to Hope, we have 350 kids applying for 75 seats. Right? We can't take all of them. We're too crowded in our school. And so we have to tell a bunch of kids no. So one of our admissions directors, Dorian, he's here. And so he has to tell we'll probably get 500 kids to apply this year. He's going to have to tell 400 kids no, and 75 kids will get a yes. So you have to figure out which kids will take advantage of hope, which kids will embrace the 4 years that we have with them to become leaders who will give back. Right? Jose is a graduate of hope. I'm a graduate of hope. Dorian's a graduate of hope. And when you think about coming back to your community, right, we call it sending the elevator back down. Once you've made it to a certain level of success, when you get out the top of the elevator, you hit that one button so that a kid at the bottom isn't waiting for something that doesn't come. You just accelerate that process just a little bit. Right? So we love when graduates are coming back and investing in the kids, but we have to pick them. Right? You only get 75 seats. So with all the new teachers, I run an exercise. Say, hey, all these kids are applying, you got to accept 2, reject 2, and wait list 1. And this is the list of kids we have. So there's a top football recruit. Chris Millett, our head coach, is here. But I caught the kid cheating on the entrance exam. Tough. A talented member of the choir, kid with a 3.9 GPA who plays rugby, volunteers at school events. Another kid who plays rugby and basketball, 45-minute commute on public transportation. But he got kicked off the basketball team for arguing with the coach. Tough. Last kid is humorous. He'll be an actor in the school play, and he's going to do work study to cover his tuition. All right, when you got to accept 2 of those kids, reject 2 and waitlist 1, what are we doing? Who's accepting student number 3? One guy. Handful of people, decent amount. Number 5. Who really wants student number 1? Nice, Chris. Win. Right, so when we do this with teachers, the teachers have an allergic reaction to student number 1. Teachers hate sinners. Teachers hate cheaters. Okay? Teachers hate when kids cheat. Whoever cheated in high school before? Middle school? You can be honest. We're at the Bible Foundation. A sinful Emmanuel Bible Foundation. It's okay. By the grace of God, we shall all be changed. Okay? I read that in a nursery once when I visited kindergarten. And so when teachers are analyzing this, a lot of them don't want number 1, right? But they want some of the other students. They can believe in them. So afterwards, I say, thank you for understanding how the school works, how it operates, how the kids get here. And then I have a student come up and I say, hey, if we accept one of these kids and have them for 4 years, how can we help them how can we expose them to successful moments, right? Take them on college visits, give them AP classes, give them sports teams. And so we have a student come up and he'll introduce himself. Hi, my name's Treville Hilton. Right? These are all the experience I had at Hope. I visited Columbia. I visited Harvard. I visited Notre Dame. I took AP classes and got a 4 on the AP Calculus exam. I played on the rugby team. Right? I sang in the choir. He explains his experience and why it was beautiful. He says, I am all these students. Right? It was interesting to hear you say who deserves to be in, who doesn't. But all 5 of these profiles are mine. They're just broken into 5 parts. I got kicked off the basketball team. Right? I got suspended from school. I cheated on the entrance exam. But Hope gave me a second chance anyways. And that's what Hope's all about, giving kids second chances. We're not perfect. Kids make mistakes. But the goal is to give kids a second opportunity. So Treville Hilton graduated in 2020, and then he went on to the University of Chicago. Right, this is a pretty beautiful story, pretty awesome story, but how quickly can we judge him? How quickly can we dismiss the hopefulness we ought to have for him because he cheated on the entrance exam? You all cheated. No one raised their hand besides Coach Millett for number 1. Right? And this gentleman up here, the big guy. That mentality needs to resonate with our teachers more. I have to coach up our teachers on how to believe in students because they're not our project. We are part of their process. Okay? We can't see them for their problems. You have to believe in them for their promise, what they can become. Every kid deserves a champion, someone who will never give up on them, someone who will keep believing in their potential to be the best version of themselves. Not perfect, but improvement. Right? Tracking progress. The celebration of progress is beautiful. Right? Celebrate progress no matter how slow. I think Plato said that, or Aristotle. Well, really old guy said that. But tracking progress is super important to us as a school. And it mattered to Treville. We say, the teachers will always come up, why didn't you rip his test on that exam day? Are you promoting cheating? I've cheated before. I just never got caught. I got away with it. But I'm not promoting cheating. I say, if a kid is going to show up on Saturday at 8 a.m. and take the time to cheat on the test because he wants to be in our school that bad, I'm kind of digging that. I kind of want that kid to come. We can coach him up. We can change his behavior, right? But you can't teach hunger, motivation, right? Treville did work study on his own, showed up to the interview by himself. His parents wouldn't come to the interview. Teachers say, hey, that won't work in the real world. The real world is not a briefcase downtown for your corporate job. The real world is getting into the University of Chicago and working at Menards, stocking shelves so that you can pay your younger twin brothers enrollment fees to go to Hope. Right? Treville paid for Javion and Jayon's enrollment fee. That's real world. Treville couldn't go to his job after Adam Toledo was shot because he had to cross through a Mexican neighborhood, and there was a race war in 2021. Right? That's the real world. So you can't dismiss kids so quickly because of some of their mistakes. You have to believe in their potential and what they can become. When you think about casting judgment, right? Judging Treville, judging other students, judging your family members, your mother-in-law. No amens there. In John chapter 7, Jesus talks about why it's okay to heal on the Sabbath, why it's okay to break some of these old traditional rules for the sake of blessing others. He says, stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. Later on in John chapter 8, there's a woman who's brought by the Pharisees to Jesus. And they say, hey, should we kill her or should we not? Should she die? It's on you. Make the decision. So Jesus bent down and he started to write on the ground with his finger. As they continued to question him, he says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Then again, he stooped down and he wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard him began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing. See a lot of gray hairs in the building. Right? The next generation, we can't rely on them to change the path, to be fine on their own. It behooves the older generation to help guide, direct, to lead the charge. I haven't heard a sermon on that, but I'd like to. And I found that interesting to think, hey, the oldest ones left first. The oldest ones realized first. Whoops. So when we think about true fasting, right? Fasting is not just about refraining from unhealthy foods. Fasting is about an action-oriented mentality. Isaiah 58, true fasting is the title of the chapter when you read it. So when you skip to verse 5, this is Isaiah sarcastically challenging the Jews. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen, only for one day that people humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? And he reaches forward with a challenge right after. Is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them and to not turn away from your own flesh and blood, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. He moves forward. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins. They will raise up the age of old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorers of streets with dwellings. If you're truly fasting, if you're action-oriented, not hiding away, thinking about your own introspective growth, you have to do that. That's important as well. Right? But this is a call to action. It's not just in Chicago, it's with everyone you interact with on a day-to-day basis. Shameless plug, Hope starting a trade school, right? So we're going to be the repairers of broken walls and restorers of streets with dwellings in Chicago on the west side. Liuna, I recognize that. Liuna is one of our partners, the operating engineers, the electricians, Union 150, Local 150. and the plumbers, right? It might seem commonplace to you guys. That might not be a big deal. In the city, swinging a hammer is not common, right? It happens over in Bloomington and smaller places. Having a trade school in Chicago for inner city kids is very uncommon and is beautiful. And so my challenge to you as we think about true fasting and judgment is for have you guys to come visit Hope. Come visit our school. Lots of times you think Chicago, when we were interacting with people last night from the board, even this morning, you came from Chicago? Wow, Chicago. Right? I was in Mexico and a guy called the place. I said, hey, I'm from Chicago. He says, when are you going to get out of that piece of town? Right? And that's how he labels Chicago. Because everyone watches the news. Everyone knows what Chicago really is, a place to stay away from. Right? But not for us. Right? That's where we are and that's where we'll be. So when we think about Chicago, if you come and visit, you'll hear beautiful stories. Right? Just like Treville's story, you'll hear a story from Jayla. Jayla, you want to raise your hand? Jayla's going to become a nurse. Jayla's story is filled with compassion. Jada, you going to raise your hand? Jada's going to become a forensic scientist. Right? Jada's going to be fantastic. Alex Garcia, his story is filled with creativity. He's our school photographer. He's the MC for chapel. Pablo just went on a scholarship. He went to Italy for a leadership scholarship this past summer. Right? Joe Guinan put him there. Right? Pablo's going to be a trilingual lawyer, Español and Italiano. Right? That's impressive. Right? Ryan Williams, where are you? Ryan Williams is going to win the state championship in the 100-meter dash in May. Right? Ryan is the fastest boy in the state in 1A. I believe in you. You're going to do it. Right? Those are the stories you can hear. But when we think about Chicago, Chicago is all those bad things. Right? We're not seeing Jacob, Renee, Ryan, Lisette, Jada. That's what we want you to think when you're thinking about hope. When I tell the kids your story matters, you have to tell kids that their story matters. Otherwise, they won't believe it. You can't say, hey, you're just another number. You're just another student. You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean in one drop. You're special. You're going to change the world. That's what's most important for the kids. They need to have someone who believes in them, someone who doesn't give up on them, right? Someone who can help tell their story. So when you think about Chicago, when you think about all the bad things, the crime, the violence, the bears, not Hope. Hope don't win that state championship, Chris. Teenage pregnancies, drugs, alcoholism, depression, poor educational opportunities. When you think about all those bad things about Chicago, it's going to be in front of you all the time. It's going to be on the news. There's going to be mass shootings. There's going to be more red tape. There's going to be more yellow tape. There's going to be more and more reasons to not come visit. Right? And so we got you this rock. It's on your table. You can grab it and you can hold it. As an educator, you have to have people touch things. The manipulatives are important. You can grab it. Don't worry. It's not going to hurt. There's a rock on your table. You got to grab this rock. This is a hope rock. Right? When you think about casting judgment, when you think about throwing the first stone, this is going to be all in your face for Chicago. You say, hey, I'm not going to Chicago. There's too much violence. I'm not going to Chicago. Look at all those gangs. I'm not going to Chicago. There's no hope. There's no opportunity. There's no chance over there. Right? But if you keep this little hope rock in your pocket, right, you'll remember that there's a lot of good things going on in Chicago. That there's this beacon of light on the west side of Chicago where Jada is shining, where Jayla's shining, where Ryan's running, where Pablo's learning Italian, where Alex is taking pictures, where Renee is going to become a surgeon, right, a pediatric surgeon. It's impressive. Jacob's going to be running the hurdles this spring. Jacob's an orator. Very eloquent. Right? I appreciate listening to Jacob talk. So when you see all these things about Chicago, right, if you have this rock near you, keep it in your pocket. Don't throw that judgment at Chicago because we'd love to host you. We'd love to have you come visit us. So this is us. We're small but powerful. We are hope. We're not going nowhere. We'll be there till the casket drops. So we'd love to have you come visit. There's books, a book that my dad wrote. I'm working on mine, but he wrote one. It's called Safe at Home. We've got some different information. Grab a flyer. We'd love to host you on a visit. We think we're the coolest small school in America. I think we're the dopest school in the city of Chicago. Thank you, Jayla. Start that clap. It was almost contagious. Nice. Thank you, Jayla. That's still you. Credit to you. So Hope has become a school that the city of Chicago cannot afford to lose. And we'd love to strengthen this partnership when we think about Bloomington, Illinois. Getting our kids out of the city is so important. Can we do a retreat here? Can we come and stay in the dorms at Illinois Wesleyan, right? Can some of you organize a barbecue so that every one of our kids can say, hey, I know someone in Bloomington. Someone in Bloomington is praying for me. Someone in Bloomington believes in me, right? And how can we do that for you, right? Your kids, how can your kids come visit Chicago, and how can we help them understand that there's beautiful people here and there? Yeah, my name's Ike. Thanks for having us. Appreciate you.